Hello, welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I'm Renee Allen, host of this podcast. And yes, I'm excited to be here. I know I say that a lot, but I am. I'm happy to be here. And I want to talk to you about something that I've thought about mentioning for a while. And I don't know if it'll seem ADHD related or not, but everyone deals with it. If you live somewhere where you drive on roads and you have a car, maybe even if you just ride around on a motorcycle. I don't know why I do this. I try to qualify everyone, like who might not fit in this group. There might be people who just ride a scooter and they live somewhere with really good weather, or they ride the bus or take the train, and that may be true. So, but if you have experienced traffic or road rage or impatient drivers, or if you fall into that on your own, I'm going to take this bracelet off. It's making noise. I don't know if you watched the documentary about We Are the World, the 80s video that Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder and all those amazing artists were in. But I think Stevie Wonder, no, wait, Michael Jackson, who else organized it? Oh, Lionel Richie. Yeah. Anyway, I think Stevie Wonder was part of the planning, but at the end, they say he kind of just came in the last minute and didn't have a lot of input on the planning, or he didn't help him with that. Not trying to say anything bad about Stevie Wonder. I can go off on a tangent very easily from my tangent. But anyway, it was kind of fun because at the end, they said they were getting to Cyndi Lauper's part. And if you know that song, she does that, well, 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 and just sings it like crazy. And they kept hearing what they thought were chains. And they thought, why are these chains coming in? What's going on with these chains? And they kept listening to the recording and they kept having her do it over and over and over again. And I think this microphone's not over enough. Anyway, it ended up that it was her necklaces. She had on so many necklaces, kind of one of those 80s things that that it was just making all this noise. So as she'd sing and the microphone was on her at that time and she's, dancing and everything, that all of her millions of necklaces that she had on, probably a bunch of bracelets, were just making all this noise getting picked up. So my 2 little bracelets, I actually have a third one on. I'm taking off because the third one probably, maybe it'll make a sound too. I'll move it too. Got to get rid of those distractions, right, before I start. But road rage and looking at ideas of what you can do when you're on the road, either dealing with other drivers who aren't good drivers or people who get angry for no good reason, or you might make a mistake while you're driving, or you have your teenager driving. That's one of the scariest things ever, is to have your teenager driving and you're in the car. They probably have signs for this, with Etsy and all that and the internet. But back when the internet was very, very young and you couldn't buy things everywhere by anybody of everything, I went to the hardware store and bought a sign, and I think I just turned it over. It was kind of like a sign that you'd have on the road, but it was, I don't know what it was for, like for your driveway or your door, like beware of dog, that kind of sign. And then I flipped it over where it was blank and I wrote on there, caution, student driver, and put it on the car, probably with magnets or something. And my kids didn't really like it, but I did that because I didn't want people mad at them. I knew that my kids might drive too slow or drive too fast or change lanes in a way that people didn't appreciate. And I didn't want them to get mad and do something retaliatory that could be dangerous for us. And so I thought if I have that on the back, kind of like when people had those little stickers or whatever that said baby on board, the whole idea was, let's help the world know that we're humans in this car and that we want to have you treat us kindly because our teenager's trying to learn how to drive, or we have children in the car, or maybe that child's upset and I'm working with that child, or we want to keep this car safe, drive carefully around us because I have children in here. We should drive safely around everyone. But when you get in the car, and especially at busy times of the day, and it might be that that's the only time that you drive, driving your kids to school or driving to work or having to go to the store at that time of day when it's really busy or you get on the freeway or something, you might deal with other drivers that can be scary to be around. And what do you do? So let's just look at it as you being the very innocent driver that you are, and maybe you are. But let's take that scenario first. So you are the passive driver, you're driving, but you're also they call it a defensive driver. You're looking around, aware of other drivers, because that's the safe way to be, because you can't really predict what they're going to do. So you try to get an idea. Are they trying to turn even though their blinker isn't on, and all those things. And then you have somebody who swerves around you or cuts you off or just gets impatient because they want you to go faster than you are. And you're going as fast as you need to go, whether it's because you don't want to go higher than the speed limit, or it's raining and the roads are slippery, or the conditions aren't such that you can see very well. There can be all these different reasons for you not driving in a way that somebody else wants you to. And they might just, whoosh, like those drivers on the freeway that just weave around everyone, and you just kind of go, whoa, you're startled by them for one thing. So that changes your nervous system. You went from whatever state you were in. Maybe you weren't totally mellow and zen and stuff, just driving in your car, but you might have been a little tense because you think, "Oh, I have to get here on time. I left a little late," or "There's more traffic than I thought," or "I don't really want to go to the doctor." Whatever's on your mind, or you're listening to the radio and yeah, you don't want to hear the news. So all that stuff that could already make you not be as calm as you would hope to be. And then maybe you keep hitting red lights. So there are so many stressors that can impact you, and even if you don't get that driver that's not driving as safely, or that you see almost run into somebody and you think, did you see what you were doing? We have all these experiences that we have in the car. And it's really crazy because it's like the cars start treating each other like there aren't humans in the car. And I don't know if you've ever thought about that, that it's just like, even just the way people say that, can you believe it? I mean, that car cut me off, or that truck did this. And really, it wasn't the truck, it was the driver, unless the driver lost control of the truck or something somehow. I always look for those exceptions. But there are people in the car, whether it's the driver or somebody else, and trying to first remember to make driving a more human experience and hopefully make it a better place, because it happens one person at a time. And even though we can't control everyone, if we could just control our car, that could have an impact on the other cars. And maybe they'll start spreading the news, or getting this kind of news, spreading the news. We'll start spreading the news and people will hear about it. But I would love a movement for a more peaceful driving experience. It used to be where people would say, let's go for a Sunday drive, because that was a peaceful experience to get in the car and go somewhere. Road trips were really fun. We didn't think of being stuck in traffic for 3 hours. That was supposed to take 5 hours to go up there, but it actually took 8, it took 9, yeah, I was exhausted, all that. And so it's become pretty stressful to drive places. I don't know why. I don't know why. Road conditions. I don't like it when they have construction at peak times of the day, all of those things that can irritate us. And when you're driving, first recognizing if something unexpected happens, that's pretty normal. And we experience that. We get a little, and just, oh my goodness. And you might even yell out, or just, my kids used to say, Mom, when you do that, you scare us, because I do that. It's just really, and I hope I wasn't scaring you if you're driving, but you do that because you're in reaction. And that's a breathing reaction of a change in your nervous system, of that fight or flight, or that freeze, or just taking in information that's startling. And some people might do it without making that sound. Some might do it by just yelling something out or something. But whatever you can do to keep yourself in a calmer state will make the whole driving situation better. You'll be able to react better. And especially if another situation comes up that you need to be in a good space to begin with. And if somebody else is doing something that you don't understand, recognize that you don't understand what they're doing. Like somebody who is going far too slow, you need to get somewhere, and you're thinking, I need to get around this guy. Maybe you've personalized it a little bit that it's not just a car, it's a guy. But then you pass the car and it's actually a woman who's in her 80s and she's totally overwhelmed with what's going on. Maybe her responses aren't as good, and you start to realize this person isn't who I thought they might be, and maybe I need to have more compassion, and maybe it's okay if I take one more minute to slow down and get around them when I can safely, and hope that they get where they're going safely, because there are other things I think of. I always tend to think of, not maybe not all the time, but in a lot of situations, I try to think of what experience is that person having? What story might be going on that can give me more compassion, or at least more of a neutral response to them than being upset or just thinking, that jerk, or they're on their phone, aren't they? Or whatever it is. And some of those things may be true. There are jerks out there and there are people on their phones when they're driving that aren't driving safely. But we don't have to have our day changed by them. We don't have to have our emotional state changed because of them. We don't need to give them that power over our day, where we arrive somewhere and we're exhausted. We're not refreshed. We're not ready. I don't know if you've ever done that, where you've gotten somewhere, especially on a road trip, and you get there and people are happy to see you, and you're just in a bad mood because you're just like, I just did this whole thing and I don't like it. And so starting to look at things from a neutral lens, or adding humor, which isn't as neutral. You can still think that that person's a jerk or whatever you want to have the name for them in your mind, but to neutralize it in some way with humor is also nice. My favorite thing to do with that, because it happens a lot to me, and you might have other scenarios with driving, but my favorite thing is when there's somebody who is just, revving their engine and going past me like, I can't believe you were going so slow and I have to go around you because you're, like, I'm in a hurry and you're not, or whatever. And I'm going the speed limit, or whatever my reason is. I'm going to turn right in a minute. So I'm not going to be going fast because I need to slow down to get into that lane or whatever. But when that happens, I like to look and see where they go. And I like to see if they really make it that much farther ahead, because it's like somebody who sprints, but then it's not like they can just keep running to the finish line. They can't get to where they're going. They don't have any control that they can keep going at that speed the whole time. They speed by you, they huff and they puff, they might even honk, they might even flip you off, whatever they do. And then, a few blocks later, you see you're right next to them at the light, or maybe you're even in front of them because they're in a different lane, or they have to turn left, and they're not going to get there any faster than if they would have stayed behind you. So that kind of cracks me up. That kind of helps me just stay in a better mental state, because when you're laughing, even if it's imaginary, like thinking that, even if you don't know the end of the story, just telling yourself that. So what? It's saving them 5 seconds. They're going to get there 5 seconds earlier. Is that really going to make a difference? I like kind of just telling myself that. But what can you actually do when you're impatient? What can you do to calm yourself when you're impatient? You can't really do anything for the other person. You can get out of their way if they're impatient. My husband's really good at that. He'll pull over at the side of the road and let people go by when he knows they're really impatient. I do that not very frequently. I have done it. I'm sure I'll do it again someday. But for the most part, I think you can wait. I'm not going under the speed limit. You can wait. I don't know. But he's really good about that, of just getting out of their way and letting them go. And I do that if there's somebody who I think is driving unsafely or something, like, go around me, go ahead. But if you're at a light, did I just mention this recently? I think I remember mentioning a green arrow. Oh, but for a different reason because I didn't understand the green arrow system in Arizona. Or no, it was the blinking yellow light. It's different in different states. It's probably different in different countries. I'm not good at learning new systems, but anyway, so you're at a green light, you have your green arrow, you're waiting to go, and somebody's in front of you. And just like we can do while we're waiting, we might not look in front of us the whole time. We might not be looking at the light the whole time. And the light turns green. It's time to turn. And we know with those green arrows, they don't last forever. So we want that person in front of us to go so that we don't miss our opportunity, especially if we're back a few cars. But if you're the one car behind, you might feel like, hey, I'm right here. Maybe I should tell him hello, like you're looking down at your phone, or maybe not. Maybe they're just adjusting the air conditioner, they're doing whatever else. And so you honk at them. And I used to be more of I'll honk at them because if it goes too long, that could be a problem. There are people behind me. So I feel like I'm doing a service to the community by honking at them. But there are different ways to honk, and some honking can sound ruder than others. And if you don't have a horn I don't have a very new car, so I don't know if newer cars are better. But if you don't have a horn that responds in a gentle way, some cars that it's hard to make it sound like a friendly honk, like a doot doot, like a doot doot, or something. Some of them just sound like or you just lean on it a little bit wrong, and it can sound like a come on, get out of my way. And what have you done? You've taken somebody who isn't paying attention for some reason. And a lot of times when you're not paying attention, you're kind of at a more relaxed state. So think of me in the car, and especially when I had kids, and maybe I'm talking to my child or something, and I'm in a little more relaxed state, and then I get this alerting, uh, and then I'm thinking, what? And then I'm like more upset inside, and oh, okay, okay, and I go, and my day has been changed by that interaction. Can I be tougher? Yeah, sure, I can be tougher. But as I've thought about that, do I want to create that in another person? Do I want to create some kind of stress for them? I do not know what they're going through in their lives, and it might not be good. And one more stress could just be the breaking point, or it could just add to them getting somewhere, being more stressed, and then maybe not being in as good of a state of mind, emotional state or something, not handling a situation as well, and that could affect their lives. You just don't know what chain of events, what part you're in. And since I really gave that some thought, and this has been like 5 years or more. I always try to think, was it before COVID or after? I think it was before COVID, so more than 5 years. Where if I'm at a light and somebody's in front of me and they're not turning left, they don't see the light, or even if they're supposed to go straight, they're not going yet. I think, give it a little bit. I think they're going to figure it out. Can I wait 1 second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds? Usually those 3 seconds are a lot longer than we think. And our initial reaction to say, hey, go, and we just make ourselves wait, they'll figure it out. And they don't have that jolt to their nervous system. And we don't have that energy going into it. We have the energy that has calmed ourselves, and we go through that light better. My other little tool, a stoplight tool, this is my stoplight yoga, is using the breathing that I use in my yoga classes at the stoplight, because I have a hard time waiting. And this is an ADHD thing. So if you have, I think it goes more with the impulsive hyperactive part of ADHD. If you have a really hard time sitting still, standing still, waiting without any progress, a stoplight is the epitome of waiting without any progress. And when you see the lights on the other side come on, and oh, this is like so much through traffic, it's going to take forever, and you're sitting there and you're, and it can seem like a really long time Which, yeah, we can make it. I tell myself things like that in traffic. I try to give myself all this positive self-talk is, you won't be here forever. You're not at all those other stoplights still that you were at, years ago or whenever I was in traffic thinking you did make it home that night, grateful that I did. But eventually, even what I call parking lot traffic, where you feel like you're in a parking lot, there's cars everywhere and no one is moving. It can drive me a bit mad. But I do have to give myself that positive self-talk of or just, tell myself little tales of eventually this is gonna be moving in an hour or 2 or tomorrow or the next day. It's not lasting forever, even though everything in your being might be, "It's lasting forever. I'm not going anywhere." So that's just some of it is just the talking to yourself. The other part is the actual breathing technique, and you don't have to tell yourself anything. You can just do this. Before I taught yoga, I did yoga videos at home for like 10 years. And the instructors that I did yoga with were Baron Baptiste and Brian Kest. They were the two that I did yoga with the most. And they would talk about Ujjayi breathing. And I thought, okay. And they tell you all this stuff, even other yoga instructors about, it's like a Darth Vader breath. You hear the sound or ocean breathing. And I have no idea what I actually did. Because when I finally figured it out, however many years later, I realized I was never doing it right. I think I was just breathing more slowly. I think I was trying to do what they said, but once I actually did it correctly, I used it in so many situations like a stoplight where I'm sitting there when I tense up in my body, I do it. And the funny thing with this kind of breathing is if you go to a yoga class and the teacher's telling you, like it's an audible breath, meaning you can hear yourself breathing and you can pay attention to your breathing, the pace, the timing, the texture, the feeling, the sound. And there are people that when you say that, and I don't say all those things at once, but there's just a variety of things I've heard or that I've said. I like saying the texture for some reason because there's kind of a throatiness, a texture to it. But there are people who think, oh, if you're supposed to hear that breathing, then it's supposed to be really, really loud and everyone's supposed to hear it. No, it's just you're the only one that needs to hear it. No one else needs to hear it and nobody else wants to hear it that I know of. that I know. But anyway, so where am I with that? Oh, okay. So what you have to realize is that there is some kind of a texture to it. I'm if you're watching on YouTube, I'm distracted. My little Renee Allen sign's kind of big. I'm moving it and making it smaller. Anyway, so there's a texture to it, and that's helpful to know. And it's helpful just to know what your throat is doing and what sound that you make normally does the same thing. So the easy one is the exhale because it's like saying ha. It's sometimes people say it's an H sound or it's like fogging up a mirror with your breathing, that. And I don't know if this my microphone, I don't think it picks up all my breathing. But so you're doing if you just say ha with as much force in the H part, I think of it as pushing the air out from the base of the throat. I don't know if you've ever used a push broom and you push it like with the really big kinds that they would have in a multi-purpose room at the school or something or in the gym. And if you ever got to push the push broom, it was really, really fun. It was really big. And that's what I feel like is that when I'm exhaling, I'm pushing that air out. I'm doing that. It's right here from the very base of the throat, like in the neck, the base of the neck, and you're pushing that out. And even if your mouth is closed, which is more calming and it's a kind of cleaner breath, even if your mouth is closed, you still have that same action that you're saying ha and you're pushing that air out. And I know this sounds like a lot, but you can do it like in a few seconds at at a traffic light. So the inhale, I think, is harder to explain. And I say that because people can do yoga with me for a long time. And like I said, I did these videos for years and I wasn't doing it. But then I actually did a video called Learn to Breathe. and I learned how to do it. But one thing that was super helpful was the inhale is an like an EH sound. And And when you widen your mouth and you just do an eh, it's not an E. E brings your, if you look in the mirror, you can just feel it. If you say E, it's almost like you're smiling. So that's why they say cheese when you're getting your picture taken. But if you, I shouldn't even wear my glasses. I'm not reading a thing here. I'm just talking. I'm wearing my glasses because I'm looking at myself. But the E sound is like say cheese, and your mouth comes up like you're smiling so big. And the older we get, the more we realize that in those pictures, it makes your eyes smaller. Maybe we shouldn't say cheese quite so much. Maybe some che. I don't know. But the S sound is widening in the mouth, but not so much expanse in the smiley parts. So you're doing your mouth is completely relaxed. And again, I can see the microphone's not really picking it up, but it's a slow and if you think of the throat again, not the mouth moving, the throat is widening as you breathe in. It's if you're saying eh, and then on the exhale, it's ha. And if you practice this enough with your mouth open, and you can breathe in 3 or 4 or 5 counts in, maybe even longer. You might even do 6 on an inhale, and then exhale the same or a little longer. And there are so many different recommendations on that. Some people have box breathing, 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out, 4 counts, whatever. Or a lot of teachers just do in 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, which does seem more rhythmic. That's what music is a lot of the time is, or in 2, 3, out 2, 3. It sounds better, I think, when I'm teaching in class. But I just let people count themselves because I had one person, this is the rejection sensitivity. I had one person once, he said, I can't stand being told when to count. And I thought, actually, when I'm being taught to, it doesn't bother me, but then when they get really super picky about, "And now hold for this," I think, "Can you just let me do this myself?" Because, like, maybe that doesn't feel as good in my brain or in my body. So, I happen to pay attention so much and stuff. So, what's really important is just slowing down your breathing. Doesn't matter, like, the little particulars of how long it is, slowing it down, and that's why I say counts instead of seconds or whatever, because you can just count with it at your pace. And so you're inhaling that you're giving out that ha. And as you do that ha, you might realize in your body, that's what your body does when you sigh. When you are giving a big sigh of relief, you're going, and your body just relaxes. So it's a manual way to relax. And it's just calming. And you think of when you're doing something like you're at the ocean, you're looking around, it's all soothing, it's beautiful, and you're kind of like, that's kind of the thing. Your body actually knows how to do these calm responses of, oh, this is just wonderful. And then, I'm so relieved. And so getting to do that when you're at a traffic light, it might sound like a lot of work, but once you know how to do it, it really is just instantaneous. You just sit there and it's a little method to get you through a moment. You can do it while you're standing in line at the bank. You can do it while you're sitting in a meeting and you wish you could be somewhere else. No one else has to hear you do it, but you could be doing it. And just becoming a calmer, happier person because you're more content when you're happy. And it also gives you something to do. We all need something to do when our brains are going crazy. We don't want to sit in traffic. One of the things I tell little kids to do, I teach music to kids at church. And I tell them, when we were little, we didn't have devices and fidget toys and although I do give them those little stretchy worm things, but I show them how, like if you just interlace the front 4 fingers and the thumbs can go round and round in circles, that's kind of like an instant toy. You don't even have to have a toy with you, but you can just let your fingers go around. I mean, as an adult, I get tired, but you can watch. There's so many things you can do with your hands, like we used to do. Like here's the church, here's the steeple, open the doors, and where's all the people, or here's all the people. I don't know if you played those little hand games when you were little, or like counted hand motions that weren't actually a song, but that's how we entertained ourselves. And you can do those things, or another thing I do when I'm just sitting in traffic or whatever, just at the steering wheel, is sometimes I'll do American Sign Language alphabet. in my hands, one hand at a time, or because, like if you're in traffic, you want to hold on to the steering wheel. But if you're just sitting in a meeting or something, or if you're a passenger in the car, you can do both hands at the same time. And it's really good for your hand muscles and your fingers, especially after an injury, to keep that flexibility, all that stuff. But I don't know if that helps you at all. But dealing with crazy drivers, trying not to be the crazy driver. I feel really bad when I pull out and then somebody honks and I think I honestly didn't see you. And that can be challenging when you have ADHD. In fact, that was one of the reasons the psychiatrist told me that was one of the reasons he gave me when I said, why would I need medication? Like I didn't know what it could help with. And I was afraid that it might dull my personality. Like you hear with children in school. He told me that children in school, and it's true for my grandsons who've taken Ritalin. Can you say medication names on? I guess you can. People have whole podcasts about them, huh? But I know on social media, like sometimes people abbreviate them or they put like an asterisk or what's that at symbol instead of the A, because sometimes you get your account flagged if you're talking about medications or something. DRUGS. Did I spell it right? DRUGS. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I take the same dose as a little boy would take. So for some reason, that's the thing. I probably could take more if I could handle more, but I can't. So it might be more effective. Let's just say that, but it doesn't dull my personality at all. And it affects everybody differently. I don't know if you know that about ADHD medication, but genetically, and I've heard this about anxiety medication, depression medication too, that if you have a brother or sister who takes medication and it's effective for them, there's a good chance that it would work in a similar way for you because genetically we respond differently. And there are tests that you can take to see genetically which ADHD medication you would respond to better, but it's not cheap and I don't think insurance covers it. But somebody, so this is on Threads. I think I mentioned on the last episode that I've been going on to Threads and seeing what people with ADHD, women with ADHD talk about. And not very many of them engage with my threads, but I think when you're new on there, people don't see it that much. But a few people do, and I'm grateful for that. It's not a contest, right? But one person said that they took their medical information from 23andMe. I don't know if you ever did 23andMe, and gave it to AI, gave it to ChatGPT. And I know some people, like are real cautious about how much they use ChatGPT for different reasons, but they gave that information and said what would genetically, I don't know how much information they would have given them. You don't want to give them everything, right? But what medication with these genetics would I respond to better? And then they took that medication. It was like worked amazingly for them. And a lot of people that have medication, they get so many more benefits than I do. So who knows? But I might do that and then find out this is the one I'm taking is the best one. I don't know. But my thoughts with that, because you always got to think and analyze more, is one, 23andMe, if you're familiar with it, it's a company that you could do a DNA test and they tell you like what your heritage is, what countries you came from, which is fascinating because my grandpa came from Romania. So if I understand genetics, and I don't know that I fully do, but the most Romanian I could have in me is 25% because he's 1/4, right? He's a grandparent. Unless my mom has more of his genes than my grandma's, I don't know. I think she does actually. I don't know. But I had close to 25%. So I thought that's pretty good. Anyway, um, but I don't know, several months ago there was a whole thing about 23andMe went bankrupt and they're getting sold and if they get sold, all your information's at risk and you can cancel your account, you can like do all this stuff because all your information was there and they were keeping it for you. And if it got sold to a new company, then they would keep it there too, and you could look it up and stuff. Anyway, they had ways that you can download it and then have them delete everything, which I did. So I'm like, oh, good, because we want that information safe. That's my personal information. That's what I was thinking. So I have it in some file somewhere on my computer, but if I give it to Chat GPT, isn't that just giving it to the whole world? It's not like a login thing. Yeah, that's what I think. Unless I'm just giving them a small piece, because I know there's information on there, like how like you're more likely to have celiac disease because you have this gene. You're more likely to have this because you have that, or be prone to whatever. So I don't know. It's just another little fascinating thing to explore if you're trying to find the right medication, if you want to look into medication. But I think that's going to be it for now. I hope you found some little piece of information, or just even thinking about what it's like for you on the road, and maybe where you could be a little calmer, whether you just need to be in reaction to other people or maybe not be as aggressive. And I used to be more of an aggressive driver. I used to get upset more easily. But some people are like, I mean, I think we know some people are crazy. I've had it for all the times I've been driving, it's not that many times, but I've had a couple times where somebody follows me because they're upset with how I'm driving. And one time, it was when my oldest daughter, this is 1990, 91. My oldest daughter was in the car seat. She was a baby. She had to be old enough that, like, we were playing like little songs and we were singing, like, if you're happy and you know, clap your hands. I clapped my hands. That's the only thing I can think of that made this driver upset. I clapped my hands when they were going by me or something. I don't know. But then they slowed down and got behind me and got all mad and then followed me wherever I was going. And I've had a couple times where another driver was mad because I turned not early enough or something. That was more rush hour traffic when I worked. But and honked and got in front of me and honked and tried to stop me from going. It's just like, oh my goodness. But the one that kept following me, I just thought, there's no way I'm driving to my apartment with my child and have you know where I live. And I knew where the police station was. I lived in Pasadena in Southern California at the time. I thought I'm going to drive to the police station instead and see if I lose him. And I say him, I'm pretty sure it was a guy. Maybe I saw it was a guy. But yeah, so he couldn't see where I lived. But yeah, it's a crazy world out there. So do what you can to stay safe and let the aggressive drivers get away from you. Sometimes it's like good riddance, go away, or hope you get stuck at a light later and I pass you. So whatever, make up stories in your mind. Try to stay calm. Do your ujjayi breathing. That's what that's called. Some people still call it ocean breathing. I was thinking the other day while I was teaching a class, because even at the end of a yoga class, when you're just lying there in shavasana or even just a restful pose, and shavasana is just where you lay down and do nothing at the end and just kind of let everything, it's kind of like a recovery mode. Let your mind really, really relax. And sometimes that's the hardest thing for people. But once you get it, it's really soothing. It's really calming. It's better than a nap in the amount of time that you spend in it for sure. But one of the comparisons I make is that with the ocean. So like if you're breathing really slowly, especially if you're laying down on your back and you think of the ocean waves and the waves come up, and so that's your inhale and you're expanding in your chest and the waves come up and they expand and they grow. And then you exhale and the ocean wave goes, it crashes down on the sand and then it dissipates into the sand. It's all calm. So you're exhaling out and then it just goes, out, 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 out until it's gone. And then you bring in a new wave. So that's kind of the visual of the ocean breathing. And I was thinking, but sometimes you want it just to be more calm. And so then I was thinking, well, that could be lake breathing. Because when you go to a lake, there are waves that come in, especially if a boat drives by or something. But there are waves, but they're really subtle and they're really gentle and they kind of trickle. And so I thought, I'm going to have lake breathing, even though it doesn't sound as pretty as ocean breathing. But yeah, lake breathing. Thought of another breathing, but I will save that for later because I could go on and on. That's actually super good for stress relief. I'm going to talk about that next week. And I really do want to relate more of the how to calm your nervous system along with all the methods and strategies with ADHD, because our brains will perform better. Our bodies We'll do better. Our emotion regulation, which is challenged when we have ADHD, will be more mellowed out if we understand these other things. If we start with a calmer nervous system. Because nobody wants to be stressed all the time. Unless you really have like some work to do, like sometimes like if you need to go fight a battle, you can do that. You can be stressed. But even doing that, not being reactive is important, and just observing the people that are, like getting heated, and you can still have your strength and your power, but sometimes you do have to have a little bit of build up some kind of energy to go fight your battles. So we have to, especially as moms, I found I had to, be that mama bear sometimes and step in and go, this isn't my usual mode, but here I go. I'm going to fight this. So anyway, thank you again for being here. I'm supposed to have a call to action. Everything's, what do they call it? Transparent here. I'm supposed to tell you something at the end to help me. And it would help me to have you like, subscribe, and share my podcast, or even go to my YouTube channel and just become a subscriber, even if you never listened there. You can just go, oh, that's what she looks like. Well, I guess you see, but my hair's a lot lighter. I just updated my profile picture the other day, and on Facebook, and people were like, you're blonde. And I thought, I have highlights. I'm not blonde. But I guess I started looking at people who are blonde, and they might just have highlights too. So I don't know. I'm clueless about some things, but thank you for being here. Go find me somewhere, say hello. I would love to be in touch and find out what helps you, what you need to learn about more, and what you need help with. I hear so many questions about ADHD, and I think, oh, I've talked about that. I wonder if that person has listened to that podcast episode, or, oh, that gives me an idea for another episode. It actually confirms some that I already have in my mind that I want to talk about. And I just saw somebody ask about it on Threads the other day, and I thought, oh, that's a podcast episode that I was already considering, that I was already planning on making. So I'm happy to help you with anything I can and connect in some way. Talk to you later. Bye. Help other women find the show. Rate, review, share with someone you know. Help other women find my show. Rate, review, share with someone you know. Thank you so much. Open windows, broken shadows. Frozen dreams are left for tomorrow. Without a cause, no time for a pause. The silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me.